May the last one burn into flames. Freedom, freedom, I can't move. Freedom, cut me loose. Yeah. Freedom, freedom, where are you? 'Cause I need freedom too. I break chains all by myself. Won't let my freedom rot in hell. Hey, I'ma keep on running 'cause the winner don't quit on themselves. Telling these tears go and fall away, fall away. Oh, may the last one burn into flames. Freedom, freedom, I can't move. Freedom, cut me loose. Yeah. Freedom, freedom, where are you? 'Cause I need freedom too. I break chains all by myself. Won't let my freedom rot in hell. Hey, I'ma keep on running 'cause the winner don't quit on themselves.
Ten Hail Marys, I meditate for practice. Channel 9 News tell me I'm moving backwards. 8 blacks left, death is around the corner. 7 misleading statements about my persona. 6 headlights waving in my direction. Come on. 5-0 asking me what's in my possession. Yeah, I keep running, jumping the aqueducts, fire hydrants and hazardous smoke alarms on the back of us. But mama, don't cry for me, ride for me, try for me, live for me, breathe for me, sing for me. Honestly, guiding me, I can be more than I gotta be. Stole from me, lied to me, nation hypocrisy, code on me, driving me wicked. My spirit inspired me like yeah. Open correctional gates in high desert. Yeah. Open our mind as we cast away oppression. Open the streets and watch our beliefs. And when they carve my name inside the concrete, I pray it forever.
Freedom, freedom, I can't move. Freedom, cut me loose. Yeah. Freedom, freedom, where are you? 'Cause I need freedom too. I break chains all by myself. Won't let my freedom rot in hell. Hey, I'ma keep on running 'cause the winner don't quit on themselves.
What you want from me? Is it true? You see, I'll father get in there. What you want from me? Is it true? You see, I'll father get in there. In there.
Good morning, listeners and viewers. Welcome to Conversation for today. It's a new month. It's August, the 1st of August, 2024. And we welcome all of you who join us at this time for Conversation today. And we are aware that it's the month, but it's the most pure heart of Mary. And we heard winners don't quit. And the journey continues to our experience of what freedom really is. So we continue to make that journey, inviting the Lord to help us each day, that we would see, because we are blind in many ways. And so we desire that freedom within us, not just us, but the whole world in many ways, as we speak of emancipation and all of this every year. And we ask ourselves, how far have we gone? Have we truly experienced a freedom? Can we speak of that freedom? And today we recognize that there are many people who continue to remain in bondage and are oppressed by man himself. Man's inhumanity to man, and we continue to struggle to even ask, what is freedom? What is freedom? So we welcome you today to Conversation. And of course, we will invite your calls at some point, 435-0143, so that you can make your contribution. Bishop was not here last week because he was at the ordination of Father Kendrick Forbes, who is now Bishop of the Commonwealth of Dominica, and I'm sure he would share something on that with us. And of course, Carriacou is still in the forefront of our minds. We will hear some Carriacou and Petit Martinique. So we will hear the way forward as we continue to trod after the aftermath of Hurricane Beryl. So welcome to Conversation, and we look forward to your participation and, of course, what Bishop would have to say to us today.
Yes, happy August 1st. And I understand there's now a discussion arising in Grenada as to whether today should be the public holiday or what has happened in the past where the Monday is celebrated as a public holiday, as it will be this year. But it's an important point to ponder, and the only thing I would say is if we change it to celebrate the 1st of August, let's not be changing it back all the time. Let's settle for the 1st of August if we change it, and let's make it meaningful. I think the point that has been made is that we have these holidays, but they are not very meaningful. May Day is supposed to be the workers' holiday, Labor Day, but then some workers celebrate it, but we are yet as a country, and I think it's throughout the Caribbean, find a way to celebrate Labor Day so that not only the trade unions celebrate it, but every worker, the man working on his farm, the person working as a mechanic, every worker is able to celebrate the fact that work is God's gift, is one of the ways in which God helps us, as He has created us for work, and in that work we become more and more who we are. We discover all kinds of things in the interaction, especially with our hands and our minds, with the rest of creation. So today, in talking freedom, the church joins us in celebrating that, yes. But the church is also very mindful of the fact that freedom is something that we have to discover. And we have to discover and we have to grow deeper in that freedom. The church celebrates freedom on Easter night, the freedom of the sons and daughters of God, as we are called to freedom from sin through baptism. Right? But let us be very clear when we think that freedom from sin does not come easily. John Paul II, Pope John Paul II, was very strong when he says, there is a deeper freedom which we all have to seek. But what I find is that we talk about that deeper freedom, but we are very slow to enter into the journey that brings us into that deeper freedom. Because we have to be willing to cast off our prejudices, to be slow to judge, and And a number of things have happened recently which challenge the speed with which we are quick to say, we know and this is what is right and this is what is wrong. And then we discover after a while, wait a minute, that's not that easily judged. So there's an instinct, I think, for genuine and authentic freedom, which goes very deep, and which we have to be constantly open to the challenges that we face as we try to claim a certain freedom for ourselves. The child who runs away from home, saying, I want to be free, particularly teenagers sometimes. And then they discover they're in a worse state than before. They have not really come to freedom. For us as Catholics, though, there's one point which I think is very, very important. Freedom is only freedom when it is freedom that brings you to do what is right. That's a very important principle in Catholic spiritual life and moral theology. You are only truly free when you're able to do what is right and just, when you're able to do what helps you to become the person God calls you to be. Now, that is a journey, and sometimes that means you have to go through making mistakes. So to some extent, it's the freedom to make mistakes as well. Right? But that is part of a wider journey, and therefore we have to be very careful when we use the word freedom, especially with young people, because freedom is not only freedom from, it is freedom to. And if you find that you get free from certain things, but you are not able to do the other things that you ought to be doing, that you should be doing, the other things that are important and useful for you, then you have to look again at this freedom question. So a big challenge, and this is a challenge for Catholic education, it's a challenge for life, it's a challenge, for example, for this communications network. How do we help people to deepen their freedom, deepen their insight into freedom, deepen their capacity to let other people be free, you know? And I say that particularly because one of the things that I've seen so much in Grenada is that people believe that as if I am your boss, I must control you. If I am your parent, I must control you. And there is a capacity to help other people into freedom where we work with them, we talk with them, we try to guide them along the way, you know. And in so doing, we deepen people's awareness of what freedom really is. So it's a big task, a very, very big task. And just this past week, I was thinking of Catholic education and saying to myself, you know, how do we get our Catholic schools to become educators for authentic freedom? You know, the whole challenge, for example, of our two major schools, like the convent and Presentation Brothers College, you know, the system there, I've watched and I've seen how the young people who graduate, you can sense that they have come to a certain stage in their lives. I saw something similar at the St. David's graduation, where as you watched some of the young men, those who were prefects, the valedictorians and so on, they really have grown, they have developed. There's a certain authenticity about them of which we can be proud. But at the same time, and I say at the same time, because I was also made aware of the number of young people who are dropping out of school for whatever reason. A lot of truancy in our schools, and that cannot be helping them towards authentic freedom. Whatever reason, and this is something we have to look at more carefully. A child who drops out of school because they don't have a uniform, they don't have bus fare, they don't have money to buy food for lunch and so on. Those are things we can help with. Those are things we can do something about. And even if it means raising some funds through a school fair or something like that, to really look at these problems and attack them. So my basic challenge to all of you is to look at what are the things which compromise our freedom? What are the things which make it difficult for some of us to be truly free? And what can we do in the parish and in the school? You know, our parishes are still too much caught up with the cult, with the celebration of Mass, funeral services, and so on. We ought to be looking at how we can so live our parish life that people come, as we say, to know the Lord, to love our neighbor, and to help God in creating the world. To know the Lord, to love our neighbor, and to play our part in God's ongoing creation of the world.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Bishop. You said a lot in terms of this deepening, because it's a journey, because as a bishop, and let me take this opportunity to congratulate you and to wish you well on your 7th Episcopal ordination as bishop. I guess it is a journey, and much you would have learned and perhaps challenge, you deeper because you're able to speak from an experience of what freedom really is, and people are going to speak at different points. But as you spoke there and you talked about the deepening of that freedom, it's true. Every day we have an opportunity to be freer. Every day, if we are open and disposed and recognize that really and truly. I was seeing the thing from one side, and then I slip on the next side and realize, wow, it's different, a different side. So I think you are inviting us to an openness, really. It's, as you say, what are we becoming It's not finished yet. God is not finished with the work that he's doing in us. And we have to be patient with ourselves and patient with other people. That is if we recognize that God is opening up areas in our lives that we have seen in our brothers and sisters. So when you say God has made us free from something, but free from, for what? What are we made free for? And it's something that we have to continue to discover, you know. But as a nation, yes, as individuals and as a church, as a nation as well, what is our concept of this whole thing of freedom that we celebrate, as you say, every year? How much have we moved? Well, perhaps we begin the conversation and begin to talk about it and what has happened. But sometimes I get the sense that we are ever coming from a point of being victims of a situation that we are so locked in that we are unable to move out of that space. And it is a challenge for us to see why we continue to feel that way, even if we have made so much progress in the area of our own freedom as a people and as a nation.
I want to suggest that we haven't made all that much progress.
You don't think so?
People talk about, 50 years of independence. I mean, countries are 200 years old, and they're still struggling. I mean, the countries of Europe, I don't know how many of them can claim to be free, because the world is evolving, and there are constantly new challenges. As a matter of fact, one writer suggests that a nation is not about freedom. A nation creates free spaces in which human beings can be free. All right? It's an interesting concept, because what I see happening is when you look at how societies evolve, there are so many societies now which are at different stages in their evolution, and some of them were once free. People would say, yeah, man, we were, but then something happens, and like one of the challenges for the United States now is, what does freedom mean for them? And some of them are deliberately saying, let's go back.
Back to what?
Let's go back to an authoritarian system, because when they look at what they see in China particularly, they see the Chinese are making great progress, right? Whereas America, with all of these tensions, America feels that it's being held back by the fact that everybody wants to do what they want, and the violence and the crime and so on. So you have to watch the cycles in which you live. And I think for now, for example, when I think of Grenada, I think education is so important, because we have to teach people, one, how to develop their gifts, and then two, how to put their gifts at the service of the community. And I remember once a widow talking to me after her husband had died. She said, I only now know all that he knows. It was what it meant was that he had taken this very authoritarian stance within the home. So she didn't know half of what he was doing. And now none of what he was doing was bad. Right? But it's just that he had taken a position that I am who I am the boss, I know, as long as I bring home money for you and feed you and the children and so on. So there was a sense in which in their relationship they were not free with each other.
So that concept of freedom, it is a topic that has to continue to be discussed, because I don't know if we know what freedom really is.
Well, we have to continue to discuss it, but we also have to be careful with our legislation, that the laws that we put on the books, in fact, make greater freedom possible if we take the time to educate our citizens properly.
But Bishop, from the concept of you just give the concept of the church as to how the church looks at freedom. And it is important for us to understand from that place, because everybody has their own concept of what it is to be free, But if it is that way, then we're going to have problems, because we must come to a principled point.
Well, there are some things we can agree on, but we will never agree on everything, because there will always be people who say, freedom is to do whatever I want to do. the Catholic vision is not that.
Yeah. So listeners and viewers, it's Conversation, and today is the 1st of August. It's Emancipation Day, but we usually celebrate it on the first Sunday in August. And perhaps, as we said, we may have to revisit which is the better time to celebrate this, to give it the significance and the meaning that it really deserves. So at this point, we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to look at Carriacou and Petit Martinique. What can we do? What are the plans to continue to help?
But I'm especially grateful to all of you for engaging in this important work, because all of us are threatened by climate change, threatened a lot by natural disasters, and having your skills and your commitment really make a difference. It makes a difference for your families and your communities, and we've seen the devastation in person, and it's real, and it's really heartbreaking. So having the skills that you have and to help people prepare and to respond to disasters is so important. So I really want to say thank you for your great work. Thank you for your efforts, and they're definitely appreciated by everybody. So.
For a while there it was rough, but lately I've been doing better, and I thank God every day. But I know the things He gives me, He can take away. These beautiful things that I've got.
Sweet, I'm new. Ooh, I'm telling these tears go and fall away, fall away. Oh, may the last one burn into flames. Freedom, freedom, I can't move. Freedom, cut me loose. Yeah. Freedom, freedom, where are you? 'Cause I need freedom too. I break chains all by myself. Won't let my freedom rot in hell. Hey, I'ma keep on running, 'cause the winner don't quit on themselves. I'ma wade through the waters till the tide don't move. I'ma ride through your border.
Welcome back, listeners and viewers, to Conversation with our Bishop. We just had a discourse, I would say, on the question of freedom, but as I said, it's never complete. Every time we have to keep digging deeper and deeper to come to a deeper understanding of freedom in ourselves and as a nation. And the Bishop put a challenge to our schools and the quality of education that we experience there in our schools. So we continue with our conversation. I think we do have a caller on the line before we look at keeping Carriacou and Petit Martinique before our eyes. So good morning, caller.
Good morning, Rutina, and good morning, Bishop.
Good morning, Mr. Felber.
Yesterday I called for the conversation, but I'm assuring you, I'm not losing it.
Today is Thursday, yes. You're on the right day.
I called yesterday.
Okay, all
I'm
right.
assuring you, I'm not losing it.
Okay.
Yes. First of all, Bishop, I want to congratulate you on this 7th anniversary of your episcopate. Big word.
Thank you.
I'm sorry I was not able to join you at the Mass on Monday or any other days because, my condition. I would have been there in my better days. Yes. I want to congratulate on the statement you made regarding emancipation. Notice that you have donned African robes instead of your ecclesiastical robes. A little hat with the same material would have made a complete outfit.
My head too big, buddy.
No, because you see, I did one just like that, and the person who made it for me took piece of the same material and made it like a cap.
Yes.
So I was in a complete robe, and I used to go to work every 1st of August in my African robes.
Amen.
I just want to make a short mention also that I know most people have heard it through other media already, media outfit. Passing of Lou Smith, he was a PVC boy. As a matter of fact, we went to PVC together in same form. And what I knew that since from school days, he was destined to be a media person, because anytime there was something in the class to read, like only doing English literature, and those long books, mostly about life in the South American pampas and so on, Lou Smith was the person who read, to read. He never shied away from it. So I knew from those days that Lou Smith was destined to be a media person. So I joined a little late because, the curiosity surrounding the Prime Minister's press conference. So I took a little piece of it, but I had to come back to be on the conversation. Last week I was talking about, I was privileged to watch a lot of the National Eucharistic Congress in America, the 10th National Eucharistic Congress. And I don't know how much you were privileged to watch, but I watched a lot. And I was just wondering if this is something we might be able to do at some time. For example, they give a suggestion of having one in the year 2023, marking the 2000th year of emancipation.
Crucifixion.
What is what I'm trying to get now?
The crucifixion, the 2000th anniversary of the death and resurrection of Jesus.
Of Jesus, yes. Yeah, but they use another word, but that's in essence what it is. And so on. That's something, because it was very interesting how they came from 4 ends of the United States, and north, south, east, and west, and they from across. They got to a church somewhere in the center. So I'm thinking in my mind's eye, the crowd coming up from Guyana, Blessed Sacrament, coming down from St. Patrick, coming from St. David, the Church of the Immaculate Conception, St. David, and coming across from the West, Bowley or somewhere, and meeting somewhere. And I've been, but it was an interesting thing.
Okay.
It was very, very interesting.
Yes. Thank you. Yes, Mr. Filbert. Thank you, Mr. Filbert. Is that? Yes. Thank you, Mr. Filbert, for...
Last time I was talking about the graduation ceremonies I was watching.
Oh, sorry.
We say another time we'll deal with that, because the one from St. Rose was very, very interesting. And I just love how they use the occasion to award students for non-academic achievement and things like that. But the Catholic schools, because there was something on J.W. Fletcher and so on too, really did well in the graduation ceremonies this year.
Yes.
Where they go from there? Where they go from there is the big question. Thank you, Bishop.
Thank you, Mr. Filbert.
Yes. So, thank you for your observation and the fact that you have all this time at home. You are privileged to be able to view so much more than many of us who are on the go. So, thank you. And also to recognize the passing of Mr. Lou Smith, stalwart in broadcasting and communication. And, I had the opportunity of working with him, well, at least co-hosting for Bishop Darius's funeral. That was my first time being so close to him in that capacity, and Jerry Romaine as well. And it was really and truly a wonderful experience, lovely presence of a man, and it's very knowledgeable of what he's been doing, and a great example of what it is in terms of growth in his speech and in his, So I thought he was very good and knowledgeable whenever he has to do his commentary, which is, one of the marks I take from him. So we pray for the repose of his soul, and that we know that the Lord would reward him for all the good that he has done, and pray that the Lord will grant him eternal rest.
Great. We were going to mention Lou anyway, but I think it's a moment to remind ourselves of how difficult a job journalism is. And one of the things that we have to try and do in Grenada, you know, we've had a set of really great journalists around the time of the revolution and so on, men who were admired throughout the region, you know, and we have to be able to hold them up. Lou, I know, suffered quite a bit because of his skill and his forthrightness. So as we commend his soul to God, we have to remember those journalists who are coming up. Some of them are still suffering because they are forthright. And then there are others, the younger ones. You know, one of the really interesting things is that young journalists need older people, especially those of you who are good at the language, to help them. I mean, even I've been shocked from time to time watching television shows, even on the BBC, to realize that spelling is not right, you know, the construction. And today, that should be something that shouldn't be happening because the computers are self-correcting, or at least indicating to you that this doesn't sound too right, check it out. So we need to encourage young people, and I would hope that people don't just get into journalism because it's an easy way to make money, or because you get to know people. Journalism is a vocation. Keeping the public properly informed is a vocation, and therefore we have to encourage the best people to get into it.
Fantastic point, Bishop. Thank you very much. I love the fact that we need the old. Because I remember in school, you know, grammar was a thing that we, you know, were taught, but I'm not sure how much it is, you know, taught in a structured way. So I'm glad that you pointed out that area of weakness, and that we need to seek to grow in that and to advance in the quality of our journalism and broadcasting. Thank you. So we move on to Carriacou and Petit Martinique, the aftermath of Beryl. Last Sunday, we were able to do a virtual on the psychosocial aspect, and we were graced with the presence of Dr. Karen Moore from Trinidad, Dr. Donnellan Constantine, and Dr. Cecilia Roger. And they offered very, very good support in terms of their listening, and we were able to have Maria Hamlet, and there was another young man who was able to speak his story and his experience. And what touched me was the ability to listen, and they were able to, arising from that, were able to offer some suggestion and to look, and Father Hugh as well shared his experience of what he has seen and felt, and, you know, that desire for pastoral care. So there was a lot of aspects that arose from that conversation, and we hope that we will continue to make it available to the persons in the shelter. I hope, Dwayne, as I said, we'll work on that, because they are the ones that we want to hear the content of that program, and probably a rebroadcast.
Not hope. We have to do it.
Yes.
The story of these hurricanes and other natural disasters, natural or otherwise. For instance, somebody is witness to a murder. They need help after that, especially when you're talking about murders in a community by somebody who's known in the community. That can traumatize a whole community.
Yeah.
And I would like to think that, and pray, that one of the things that our Catholic community will become well known for is precisely our capacity to walk with people in these situations, right? We are not about simply saving your soul, right? That used to be a clarion call. You have to save your soul. Today we recognize that the saving of your soul is intimately linked to who you are becoming. The who is the soul that is to be saved, but that soul is being saved through all the various experiences of your life. And one of these experiences precisely is when something happens that is a catastrophe. How do you respond? Do you respond with the generosity of a brother or sister, or do you just sit back, throw your hands up in the air and say, somebody else will do it? That can't be where we are. So we are now in that process where, and it's something which we're going to work on, I hope, very hard. Our Catholic community, and indeed we can call all the people of goodwill in Grenada to join us in this, to provide opportunities for people to develop their capacity to be really listeners, help psychosocial animators as people deal with these crises. So we're going to be doing that in a number of ways. We go beyond the initial rush, which was last month, and now we're coming to the ongoing recovery for people and for structures. The call is for those who have that kind of skill to go to these islands, get to know somebody there, and help to build a house. Help to build a house. Help to repair something. Of course, if you have the skills. I think it would be great, and it's one of the things that the bishop spoke about the other day. It would be great if our communities, our Christian communities, Catholic and otherwise, could develop a roster of people who have certain skills. And when a hurricane takes place, it's usually about a month or so after the hurricane has passed, that you can sponsor a dozen people going from every island to help the particular afflicted island rebuild. That'd be a powerful, powerful testimony, because it's what people need. So we're committed to that, and with the aid of Caritas Grenada, we'll see how we can work that out, in fact. What is important here is to get your priorities straight, right? Right now, what I'm hearing is that people need water, they need mosquito repellent. Mosquitoes, I mean, when I was there, you could see the mosquitoes on people's hands, you know. So that's a big problem. Food, people seem to be getting food. But again, what we have to watch for, and I want to appeal to the people in Carriacou, let us know what you need. I've told Father Andrew that he has to be the go-between in that regard. But let us know what you need. If you're diabetic, we can't be sending you a whole set of soft drinks. That don't make any sense. You know, water is always needed, and then things that help you to make better use of the water. So all of these things, we hope that we'll be able to clarify and make sure that you're getting what you need. But never forgetting the people of Carriacou and Petit Martinique. Never forgetting them. Last Sunday's program, I was happy to be able to see the latter part of it. But as I was saying just now, that is not something that will come to an end and we say, yes, we're done. Right? Mosquito repellent and water, those are the things that have been echoing from people talking to me. I don't know if people in Grenada, the mainland, have any idea of what it's like to be sleeping out in the air at night where you have all these puddles of water breeding mosquitoes. And then, you know what mosquitoes do? They come out in the dark. You have on a black pants, you're likely to have more mosquito, you know. So all these things we have to look out for. And then I understand that in a number of places overseas, there have been collections taken up for Grenada and so on. I have not pushed that here because as far as I was concerned, that will come. But what we have to understand is that the Antilles bishops have a disaster fund. And what they ask of each diocese is that from time to time, you put some money into the disaster fund against the day when you will need from it. I had to write the fund more recently asking them for help, financial help. I haven't heard from them yet, but so what we're going to do is on the last Sunday in August, the collection will be taken up for the disaster fund, for the hurricane relief fund, right? So that we might make a contribution to it, knowing that we are getting more from it this year than we got in the previous years. So look out for that. and be ready to give. Here, if I might challenge both young and old, you know, you have the idea of the piggy bank. Between now and the last Sunday in August, to put some money in your little piggy bank, so that come Saturday before the last Sunday, you can take out something and bring it to church and give it to the disaster relief fund.
So the last Sunday of the month is the 25th of August.
Yeah.
Yes. So the 25th of August, an appeal for a big collection, parish collections. Okay, it's going towards the hurricane recovery of our brothers and sisters in Carriacou and Petit Martinique. Again, thinking beyond the moment, the church continues to look, and the whole question of accompanying the people, journeying with them. You know, somebody said you can't just make a general evaluation. We have to journey with the people, and that's what Bishop is asking, so that we can hear the heart of the people and know exactly, and so that they can express their needs as well, and what's affecting them. All right, so the program, as we said, it was just the first in the series, and we'll have the next segment. We'll let you know when that next segment will be. I think we have a caller online, so we are going to entertain that caller. Good morning and welcome to Conversations.
Good morning, Bishop.
Good morning.
Bishop Rosina and all others listening to Catholic News Radio today. First of all, I want to congratulations to Bishop Harvey on his anniversary. And I see you keeping strong, Bishop Harvey, in spite of all the knocks and the bruises, and so that you're getting along the way. But as you know, once you give yourself in the service of the Lord, this is expected. And I admire your fortitude and your continuation in your work that you are doing to bring the Catholic faith and the faithful together in doing the work of the church. Now, the last idea that you worked on, I think it's worthwhile considering, because it's not only for I suggest that kind of initiative could continue as a piggy bank for donations to the church. You know, they could set it aside. We used to have little piggy banks, and even tins that we used to make and collect up little change. And so when we were younger,
the Ovaltine tin.
Yes. Yes, it was so they could have it for a year, run it for a year, and the various aspects of the church requirements, you know, they could put something towards it, harvest or something like that. Now, like Brother Filbert, I too held back in certain situations where I can't join the church in doing all its work. And this is one of the big disappointments I have. I keep itching that I wish I could go and help to do this, go and put my best foot forward to help where I can, but circumstances of the number of age, now I can't reverse 58 into what I am now, but still I try to do my best in whatever way I can. I missed the program earlier as a result of also, as Mr. Filbert having indicated, because I too wanted to hear what was the topic that was affecting us in the other area of responsibility for our community. But I wondered if you did make any comment at all on the carnival that is coming up, which arose out of the incident at the Olympic Games. You know, we tend to lose the focus sometimes, because what is our carnival about? The Monday and Tuesday before Ash Wednesday. We call it a bacchanal. You know, bacchanal. So that's where we got it from. Farewell to the flesh. And down to the century, in the big countries, that is what happened. But tragically, we have descended into a state of decadency now, where carnival and its costumes, which used to be so repeat of history and things like that, we now see it just feathers and beads. There's nothing left to imagination now, and maybe the less beads you have, the more showy, and this is what is happening. So I don't know if you made any mention of that. I'd love to hear what your take would be on that. And Bishop, I do continue to wish the church, and it has always been the church's teaching, social teaching, look after one another, help each other, but maybe we were too silent along those lines before, and we have to come back to the church's social teaching up to looking after at one another, helping the sick. That's where Mother Teresa and other notable church communities and charities have their origins in the church social teaching. So I'm glad it's being brought to the fore again, that we have to look out for one another, be one another's keepers, and so retain that Christian love and fellowship as God has ordered us. Love one another as I have loved you. And still, good morning, happy celebration and peaceful anticipation for this week and the next week. God bless you all.
Thank you, dear
Thank you,
caller.
thank you.
So much grace. You know, the gentleness, you can hear it in your heart, how much you love the church and how much you care, you know, for our nation and people. So Bishop, I think she wanted to know if, well, we have Carnival there as one of the points that you hopefully will address later on, because she did make some comments on that refer to some concerns, you know, the Olympic as part of what she said, and also the Carnival, what the decadence that we are experiencing at this time. So would you like to address it a little later on?
Yeah, a little later.
Okay. All right. So thank you, caller. And Bishop will address some of these things a little later. So let's take a short break now, and we will be right back. Welcome back, listeners and viewers, to Conversation with our Bishop, and we are really grateful to the callers. And I see Jonella online. Hi, Jonella. Thank you for joining us wherever you are. It's a good way from here, but you always tune in. So we do appreciate that, and I hope you have been helped by the content of the program. So last week, Thursday, it was a big occasion and a tremendous moment for the Commonwealth of Dominica, and I dare say the Caribbean Church, as they witnessed and participated in the ordination, the Episcopal ordination of Kendrick Forbes, now Bishop Kendrick Forbes. Many of us looked on, and Bishop, we saw you at the Vespers on the Wednesday, and also we recognize you in the celebration. Yes. So, what's your experience looking at it?
First of all, Ruthina, I must tell you, you have a fan club in Dominica.
Really?
Yes. People came up to me and said, "Oh, I look at your program, you know, and Ruthina, tell Ruthina, I look at the program."
Oh, okay. I hope you met Annie Coffee.
No, these were men, darling.
Oh,
these
men?
were men. I said to myself, yes.
Okay.
So, but both men and women.
Okay.
So, but it was, well, for me, over these years, every Episcopal ordination has been a wonderful experience, not only of a community preparing to ordain or to receive a bishop, but also of the church itself, showing its whatever the qualities of the church are. And then what is something I have always looked forward to and I've never been disappointed, it's the fellowship among bishops. People think of bishops as this set of very staid and holy men, I was surprised because when I got back here, a number of people had seen a video clip of some of the bishops, including myself, Bishop John Persad, Archbishop Malzer, on the dance floor at the reception that was held to honor Bishop Forbes at the
reception?
There was a reception at the President's house.
Okay.
Yes.
The President.
So the camaraderie, we had two meetings, I think it was, yes, to discuss various things, and then we had the ordination ceremony itself. It was a time the Bahamians came out in full force because he's born in the Bahamas and has served there. So quite a few of them came down from the Bahamas. And it gave me a chance to meet some of the Bahamian priests, no longer young like myself, whom I had taught at the seminary. Because there was a time when the Bahamas sent its students down to Trinidad for formation. And that was just fantastic to meet them again. I think I missed one or two people. There's one, Father Alfred Culmer, who was in the seminary the same time as I was. I heard he was there, but I didn't see him. I didn't get a chance to really greet him properly. So where we are right now is that one of the vacant sees has been filled. So we have, I think, 3 others, including Grenada. And it takes a while. It took Dominica, I think, 2 years. Curacao is 3 years already in the running. So you don't know how long these things will take. A lot depends on the inquiry. And as I said, for us in Grenada, it hasn't even been put on the table as yet. So, the announcement that the see is vacant and we are looking for a new bishop, that hasn't been done formally. When it's done formally, then we will start a process here, which I hope will bear some fruit spiritually and otherwise.
I was really impressed with Bishop, really, looking on at the ordination. I appreciate the preparation. You could see that there was a lot put into, even to get the cathedral. And there was a layman who was interviewed, and he was speaking of the richness of that cathedral and some of the, like the stained glass windows, some of the aspects that you will not find elsewhere.
Well, would you believe that the cathedral is still under repairs?
Yes.
It was only fixed up temporarily for that.
Yes, said that.
So,
but it was beautiful, and it's like the people...
Well, it has tremendous potential.
Yes.
But it will take about, I understand, it will take about $5 or $6 million dollars. The foundation is always part of the problem. When I was working on San Fernando Church in Trinidad, that was one of the things I had to accept, that most of your money was going into things that people wouldn't see. And Archbishop Malzer, who was bishop there, he would tell you, people abused him about what happening with the money, because they weren't seeing.
Yes.
And then when you think it's finishing, you can realize the finishings themselves cost a lot of money. For instance, pews to be purchased, the glass windows to be done because some of them have been damaged.
Yes.
So it's going to be quite a task. I hope Bishop Forbes is able to turn to his American friends to help him in that regard, American and Bahamian.
But we wish him well, and also I was very happy with the homily. I think it was preached. I find this man was so. What is his name again? It's the bishop.
Patrick Pinder.
Pinder.
He's the Archbishop of Nassau.
Yeah, he was on point, and he really raised the level again as to who is a bishop and what is expected and then spoke of the man's life. So I realized that a lot of prayer for our bishops and priests, because it's not easy. You have goodwill, you enter into this situation, and also the hope that God continues to call his people. So we wish the Commonwealth of Dominica, the Diocese of the Commonwealth of Dominica, all the very best, and that you continue to work together as you did for the ordination of your, I think the 10th bishop, I can't remember, the 10th bishop, wow. So they've had quite a number of bishops. So God bless you all and continue to stay close, work together. We're going to take a short break, and then we're going to look at the gospel for the 18th Sunday in Ordinary Time. So please stay tuned in. Welcome back, listeners and viewers, to Conversation with our Bishop. We're going to look at the Gospel for the 18th Sunday in Ordinary Time. After the Bishop shares on the Gospel, you can call 435-0143. But let us listen to the Gospel and then his commentary that would follow. The Gospel according to St. John, it's chapter 6, verses 24 to 35. When the people saw that neither Jesus nor his disciples were there, they got into boats and crossed to Capernaum to look for Jesus. When they found him on the other side, they said to him, "Rabbi, when did you come here?" Jesus answered, "I tell you most solemnly, you are not looking for me because you have seen the signs, but because you had all the bread you wanted to eat. Do not work for food that cannot last, but work for food that endures to eternal life, the kind of food the Son of Man is offering you. For on him the Father, God himself, has set his seal." Then they said to him, "What must we do if we are to do the works that God wants?" Jesus gave them this answer, "This is working for God. You must believe in the one he has sent." So they said, "What sign will you give to show us that we should believe in you? What work will you do? Our fathers had manna to eat in the desert. As scripture says, he gave them bread from heaven to eat." Jesus answered, "I tell you most solemnly, it was not Moses who gave you bread from heaven. It is my Father who gives you the bread from heaven, the true bread, for the bread of God, that is that which comes down from heaven and gives life to the world." "Sir," they said, "give us that bread always." Jesus answered, "I am the bread of life. He who comes to me will never be hungry. He who believes in me will never thirst." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Powerful word.
I wasn't here last week, so I want to go back a little bit because I can't urge you strongly enough to read the whole of chapter 6 of John's Gospel, to read it not once, but to read it a few times, to read it and hear what it says, but also to allow some of the images to sink into your consciousness. Give us You know, that bread always, unless you eat of the flesh of the Son of Man and drink his blood. You know, those kinds of images that speaks to us of a certain relationship that Jesus is inviting us to. So the whole chapter has to be taken together. And as many commentators remind us, this is not the chapter about the institution of the Eucharist. That is chapter 13 of John's Gospel. This is the chapter about the whole question of the meaning of this bread. And some writers go so far as to say that this chapter must have been written sometime after, because it would have taken a while for the early church and for Mark and they to digest what Jesus had said to them so that it can be part of the Jesus story. So that bit of an abstraction apart, what we have is an encounter in which Jesus raises the question for us. What is bread to mean for us as we live the Christ story? What is bread to mean for us? So, first of all, he feeds them. And it's very clear that it's meant to be eaten. We're meant to feed on it. Now, these days, we don't see too much of that as a challenge. But for some years, for a few centuries in the church, people were told that they're not supposed to come to communion. They're supposed to stay and just look at the host. And a lot of the liturgy, including things like the bell ringing and so on, grew up in that context where the sacred mysteries took place out there on an altar. And you poor people, ignorant people, you stayed behind and you watched. Sometimes the nobles, the wealthy people and so on would be in the stalls, as they call them now. You still see some of that if you look at, for example, the English cathedrals. Those of you who looked at the funeral of Queen Elizabeth and the coronation of King Charles, you realize that the stalls are not looking at the altar. The stalls are people looking at each other across the aisle. Right? And that was because those things were so organized that the nobility had these pews, the clergy had sat like that, and then the mass of the people sat somewhere down in the back. There's a fantastic film on Pope St. Francis of Assisi in which you see that very, very clearly. So we come, we share bread. We break bread around the table of the Lord. And then Jesus, he has fed them not in an altar, not in a church. He's fed them on grass. They sat down and they were fed. And then afterwards, he interprets it for them. Because once they were fed, they came looking for him. And that's an important little observation. When we are being fed, we come looking for the one who feeds us. Mm-hmm. You know, we want more. We want more. Not because we're greedy, but because the experience itself has said something to us. So when Jesus confronts them, they ask him, Rabbi, when did you come here? And he says to them, I tell you most solemnly, you are not looking for me because you have seen the signs. Remember that the signs are throughout the book of the Gospel of John. So from the mind of the evangelist, it's these signs that tell you who Jesus is. So as yet, although this is going to become clearer in this chapter 6, they're not yet in touch with what is actually happening. So he says, you are looking for me not because you have seen the signs, but because you have had all the bread you wanted to eat. You had all the bread you wanted to eat. There's a hunger which they had, which Jesus satisfies. And therefore, later on, he's going to say to them, there's a hunger which you must also recognize in yourself, right? And it is that hunger that we are concerned about, that I am concerned about. It was not Moses who gave you the bread from heaven, and that's an interesting factor too, because we tend, when we talk about manna from heaven, and we hear that, we tend to think that the Jews had an experience of something falling down from the skies. You know what we are now hearing in terms of the research? That there were trees in that part of the world which in fact gave out a white flowery substance. And it is likely that that is what was falling down and they were taking up to eat. So here we see again how often this so-called miracle is really relating to a gift that is there before our eyes if we only know how to see it and recognize it. And when we recognize it, we are fed. So the question then, Jesus challenges them. Do not work for food that cannot last, but work for food that endures to eternal life. The kind of food the Son of Man is offering you, for on him the Father, God himself, has set his seal.
What is that food?
How do we respond to that? Do not work for the food that cannot last. What are you working for? Do you have any sense of aspiring, desiring something that is truly eternal? With all the things that you say you want, which of those things is eternal? Which of those things will last forever? I like to make this simple distinction between the things that you want and the kind of person that you are becoming. I would like to think that the things that really matter are the things that shape me, that shape the world in which I live. So that if I'm asking God for something, I'm asking God for things which can really make a difference to my life and to the life of the world in which I live. Just this morning, praying about the challenge of those 2 assassinations in Iran and Israel. What do I want out of that? What am I hoping for out of that? It's not easy. But I would hope that as my prayer becomes more in tune with the realities which I'm living, that I can dare to see in this moment the things that I should be asking God for, especially when I'm praying in the context of the Eucharist. So that is set. I've set it on that level of the Israel and so on and Iran, but we can set it at the level of our ordinary life, in the family, in the home, in the workplace. What is it that you really hunger for? What is it that you really are asking of God? What signs are you looking for from God that God is with you? That is never easy. But what does Jesus go on to tell them? He says, it was not Moses who gave you bread from heaven. It is my Father who gives you the bread from heaven, the true bread. For the bread of God is that which comes down from heaven and gives life to the world. It is my Father who gives you the true bread from heaven. So as we live our lives, as our lives unfold, I smile a lot myself when I hear people talking about how God has done this for me, and God has done that for me, and God has done... And 90% of the time, it's some material thing they're talking about. I'll get this, I'll get that, I'll get the other. To really ask God for the grace to see what is the true bread. The true bread is what nourishes us for eternal life, for life with God. The true bread is what nourishes us as we live our lives and we have to face this problem, that problem, the other problem. But can we focus on that? What is the true bread for Grenada now? Some of you will say the true bread is the bread of freedom. Ruthina will ask you, what is that freedom? And that's a question we all have to ask ourselves. What exactly is it? And sometimes we have these marvelous experiences where we're trying to wrestle with this And then something happens and we say, wow.
A shift.
Something happens and you just know that God was in this and that God is calling you to be nourished by this experience, whatever that experience is. You know. And that is where we have to go. When we come to think Eucharist, we're thinking Eucharist as that which nourishes us. Eucharist as the celebration of all the different situations in our lives where we are nourished by God. You know. And that is why when you look at the various texts, what the texts invite us to do is to taste and see, take and eat. You know, it's not just look. Eucharistic adoration is important as a form of prayer. As a form of prayer. But if all we're doing is sitting and looking, something is wrong. We are not in tune with where God really wants us to go. You know. So, for the bread is that which comes down from heaven and gives life to the world. The give life to the world is an important part of that sentence. To what extent, as I celebrate the Eucharist, to what extent, as I sit in the presence of the Lord, right, to what extent am I finding myself receiving life for the world and then giving life to the world? Difficult? I challenge you. But as I said before, this is not a gospel text to be read only for Sunday. This is something to be read a few times during this month of August. Right? Rutina said at the beginning, this is the month of the most pure heart of Mary. Right? I like to think of it sometimes as the month of the Holy Eucharist, the month of the bread of life. Because all of these Sundays we will be grappling with that. And in the grappling with it, hopefully, we'll be nourished by the God who feeds us.
Thank you, Bishop. Thank you. Kariku, take courage in this word, in this gospel. As Bishop spoke, I also thought of what you have now and what you desire. You have a wonderful opportunity of the food that will last to eternal life. It's for all of us, but I pray that the Lord will lift you by listening deeply to this word. So let's take a break and digest. And when we come back, we have some general issues, what has happened here locally, then we have regionally, and some information that the Bishop would like to share with us. So we'll take a short break. Welcome back, listeners and viewers, to Conversation. The phone lines are open, 435-0143, if you wish to add your voice, your comment to what we are dealing with here. It's not, as Bishop always says, it's for all of us together to share in this place, which is a privileged space. So, we have had our CARICOM 47th Heads of Government meeting here, and commemorating the 50th anniversary as well, and the 50th anniversary of our independence. Bishop, you were there, at least we saw. at the opening, the roundabout, and also the official opening at the True Blue Medical Center. Well, SGU, St. George's University, yes. And it was an experience, I would say. By looking on, I was not there. But it's different when you are actually in something and when you are looking on from the other side. So.
Yep. Well, I was invited to bless a CARICOM roundabout, and that's the main thing I want to put to you all today. Anybody going to the airport, anybody coming in, local, national, or foreigner visiting, will be passing by that roundabout. It's meant to remind us that we are one Caribbean people, one destiny, one hope. So one of the things which I want to say to all of you this morning, but particularly to those who will have responsibility for this country over the years, that roundabout must be seen as a roundabout for all of us. It must not acquire some kind of partisan identity. I hope it is never happening that the roundabout gets abandoned because there's a change of regime. That should not happen. When these kinds of monuments are erected, successive regimes have a responsibility to keep them going. I'm not sure. I was trying to find out what was the material from which the various artifacts were made, because sometimes you may make it out of wood, but then the water and the rain gets to the wood. You know, I hope it's sturdy enough to withstand a hurricane. But the meeting itself, I had prayed at the roundabout that we wouldn't be going around in circles. But as I listened to some of the reports, it strikes me there are still things which just seem to be coming up, and we're not finding answers. At least that's the impression I get. So we have to pray that our leaders will come to true wisdom, and that the pettiness that can often go along with political leadership may be avoided by those who lead us in this generation. There's so much to be done. And as the Prime Minister said, Hurricane Beryl taught us a lot about how much we need each other. But then we have to put that into practice beyond a particular need. So let's hope that as life goes on, the CARICOM meeting will bear fruit, and that people will be able to say that the time spent in Grenada was well spent. But as we look around the region, we see other problems. Huh? Venezuela is in crisis. Some of you may be able to look back to 1983 and say, yeah, we were out on the streets marching. But here you have an election called, and according to some people, the election's not being honored. It's easy for us to say, oh, this is these underdeveloped countries, but we don't forget the United States had a similar problem in 2021, January 6th, 2021, yes. So it happens to all of us. What we have to be aware of is that there's a need to develop institutions which can absorb these kinds of crises, and people who know what to do when such crises arise. Because it must not be simply a question of destroying one another. So we pray for Venezuela. We pray for Venezuela. We pray for ourselves as we face the shifts in our cabinet. And I want to just simply ask, there's nothing to rejoice in when something like this happens. We have to ask God for the grace for all those involved to learn something, to act on what they learn, and to help us to go forward in faith.
Thank you for that advice, Bishop. I was very impressed with Clive Lloyd, one of the honoraries. I'm trying to remember the other guy from Jamaica who has done yeoman's work for CARICOM and has been really, really a staple in the Caribbean community. But I was really impressed when, in his response, as he received the honor, he didn't just stick with cricket. but he challenged them in the area of health, you know, and to take advantage of, look at what's happening to our people in the way of diabetes and hypertension, and to do something, you know, and it's not enough to talk. And I was really impressed by the young man who did the citation for him. Is a cricketer, but he was so fantastic. He said, you know, I'm left-handed like you, and the whole place going, and there was another pro. And then he said, I look at old videos. This little boy is very young. I look at old videos with you and so on, and I want to be just like you as a cricketer. You know, it was really, really touching, you know, that, and they chose him to be able to do that. So
it's always good when you choose a young person.
Yes, and
because it's a challenge for them to do the research and so on.
Yes, it is good. And there was a young lady who did the citation for the other honorary, whose name is just evading me right now. So many things to learn and many things to grow from. So thank you. And as I said, we wish our Prime Minister all the very best in the chair, you know, for this next 6 months, and to really pray for him and for the cabinet, and to support and to be positive in our whole attitude at this time. So, Bishop, you had a question was raised about the mockery, as people had it at the Olympic, mockery of I think it was the Last Supper, and people are wondering what's the response of the church. I was looking on the net too, and I see the Vatican. There's a whole different persons responding to the disgust as to what is happening and questioning whether Olympic is. Are we questioning whether children should be at Olympic when you expose them to that kind of thing? What's the response? I mean, everybody has an opinion, but at the same time.
Well, everybody has an opinion, that's for sure.
What do we say?
I've been seeing this in a number of circumstances. We do not get anywhere with this generation of young people by simply attacking. We have a tremendous task to build positive understandings so that young people can claim their own assessments of things and be guided by that. A number of comments have been made. And one of the things that is interesting is that they're saying that if you put what happened in a different context, you would understand that the supper, and this really intrigues me, that when God gives us a supper as a primary symbol, he's able to do that precisely because a supper is that. It is a symbol across cultures of something deep, something profoundly human. So that one of the things which I think Catholics have not really taken it in is that we are not the only people who claim a supper as a primary religious symbol. Now, when you have to think about it, you have to think long and hard. Right? We are not the only people who claim that. And then when the people who heard the objections said, we were not thinking about Mass, the Catholic Mass. They may be lying, but they may also be speaking the truth. Because in France today...
They can speak the truth at the same time. They could lie and speak the truth at the same time.
No, what I'm saying is we would think that they're lying.
Oh, okay.
But from their saying they may be speaking the truth because, as Archbishop Gordon acknowledged, we are living in secular societies. People don't know, a lot of young people, they have never been inside a Catholic church. They have no idea of what it is. So we have to be very careful that we don't jump on what they call now the culture wars bandwagon, which people get onto for all kinds of reasons. For instance, in France itself, the opposition, the right-wing French, who like to claim Christianity for their own, they are like the Donald Trumps of this world, my beloved Christians. So while I think we have I've always felt this way about this and about a few other things like that, the first thing is not to attack other people for what they have done. The first thing is to reaffirm our need to make sure that we understand what we are doing. That's vital. If we don't do that, we will lose everything. But if we understand what we have to do, you know, I was asking myself, how many of the people who got so upset about that are willing to be catechists for the next generation of young people? We're catching our tails to find catechists, you know. It is no use. All you're doing is being self-righteous in a way and allowing your own feelings to get the better of you when there is work to be done. And when these things happen, I feel very strongly myself that God is calling us back to do the work, to understand that we have generations of young people who don't know what that's about, you know, and therefore will, what's all the fuss about? What are you making all this fuss about? You know, that is how they see it. And that is how one or two of them have said to me, Bishop, I don't understand this, you know. So that the bigger question is whether there are people in the world today who are deliberately parodying the Christian story. To the extent that they are doing that, there is something for us to speak to. To the extent that that is happening, we can object. But I think particularly in this day and age, the challenge is more, how do we so live the gospel and proclaim the gospel to our own that they are not seduced by those kinds of things. If we're not doing that, God is not mocked. If you can get up on a high horse and be all upset about the Olympics and not be upset by the children, as Father Jared Paul reminded us, the children who were killed in Palestine 3-4 days ago, you know.
You're dealing with a question of immorality here, Bishop? You're dealing with a question of a scandal?
Are you telling
no,
me?
No, I'm asking, is it that, or it's quite okay? I mean, the fact is, something has been displayed. Whoever put it on said they didn't intend to do that. Mm-hmm. That's what they said. But whatever damage is done already. And the persons who were selected to do it and all of that. I mean, we have to wise up too. It's just not like, okay, well, no fuss about this, no fuss about this. There are other faiths, like for example, if this was done in another faith, it would not be like this. You know, and there are other people who are collaborating to say, no, we cannot condone that kind of thing. Olympics should be something that is pure. Because this guy,
is what?
Pure in the sense of the guy was saying the culture that was put forward in some times, it was like, it wasn't offensive to you. Why does it have to be offensive?
It's so, you see, that's
people have their agendas.
Well,
they do have their agenda.
I am not saying that people don't have their agendas, but we have to be careful about making accusations which may not necessarily be true. When we say, when we get and accuse people of destroying Christianity, Christianity is already, in France at least, the so-called eldest daughter of the church, it's already gone through the roof. Now, what I find interesting, the French bishops made a statement which affirmed the Olympics as something good, and then said, this is unacceptable. But they weren't trying to condemn people to hell because they did something like that, you know. And what I'm suggesting, and I like to suggest these things because I think we have to be very, very careful that we don't pour our energy into getting angry and waste that energy, when in fact that energy should be poured into doing good. Doing good, you know. And today, more than ever, we see that. I mean, somebody asked me the other day to come back to Trinidad, and I was shocked at the reason they gave, you know. A man talking to his wife on the phone, right? The phone goes dead. Minutes later, he gets a call. Bandits just came into the house while your wife was talking to you and killed her. Right? Now, what are we doing about that? What are we doing about those things?
Yeah, but you have issues, Bishop. There's a specific incident that has taken place, and the fact is, how do we respond to that particular incident?
Let us respond to it by saying, this is wrong, we don't accept it. But let us not allow ourselves to say, okay, we raise a fuss about that and we're now satisfied because we have opened up. Because that is what is happening all over the world for Christians. Christians are getting upset over Pope Francis say this and Pope Francis say that. Hey, wait a minute. You're not listening to what Pope Francis really saying, you know. And that is what gets me, and I dare to use the word angry as a bishop, because I really think that the world is drawing us into the kind of situations where we are missing the boat completely, because we want to think that God must be defended by us. And there's one view in Christianity which says God doesn't need us to defend him, you know. God doesn't need us to defend him. God needs us to teach what is right. And if the only time you're teaching what is right is when you're condemning other people for what is wrong, you're not teaching them what is right.
Someone says this: we are not judge of the persons responsible, but as church we should speak out when we have to, in the name of truth and for the protection of our children especially. We must be clear, showing their private part, etc. to the world. What do you describe this? Outrageous? And then we have Carnival coming up and we just said, oh, it's okay? It's okay?
You see...
I'm just saying that as church, we have to have us take a stand. I mean, what do we say? How do we respond?
Take a stand for. Because when the only stand we have is a stand against, we have no stand.
We don't understand.
Right? And we are standing... I mean, I am sick and tired of the number of times when I, as a bishop, have said, let's do this, and people just fall down and say, right? I mean, that's one of the problems that we have. People are, it's very easy to say we're against this, we're against the other, right? If Hurricane Beryl had hit Grenada, we'd have been in serious trouble as a people, right?
But the Lord didn't let it hit us now.
Oh, come on.
But it hit.
Come on, don't blame the Lord for that.
No, but I said the Lord didn't allow it. We had Ivan. We had our fair share. So God does what he wills.
But we're still not learning the lessons, and that is...
Who controls who learns and how quick do we learn?
That's a problem. Huh? That's a problem, which I ask the Lord about that all the time.
Well,
because I think that is a core issue that we have to face. There are many, many people who are quite happy to wave the flag when they want to wave it, but when it comes to actually doing what is necessary, right, to form people, right, we're not doing it. And I'm saying that we could spend all the time in the world condemning.
Wow.
But let us get down to the work of formation. Until we do that, we ain't going nowhere.
Okay, we have no time.
Oh, Lord.
We only have time to wrap up, Bishop. Because I guess
anyway,
at some time you
speak
of the...
Let me just say this. Father John George will be leaving us in August, this month, 20th as far as I know. And 3 other priests will be coming in over the next month or 2. So we take this opportunity to thank Father John George for all that he has done. I hope we can remember again later on to say thanks to him for all that he has done. And then I want particularly to mention Reverend Silbert Prescott, the Superintendent Methodist Minister, who is leaving on the 8th next week to go back to St. Vincent, I understand. He has been a wonderful minister here, preached a fantastic homily at a funeral the other day. And I owe him a lot as a friend in the Conference of Churches. And then Battle Hill, is on the 12th, is it? Or the 11th? Yeah, the 11th of
August.
Of August,
That's
yes.
Carnival Sunday, actually.
Here's Carnival Sunday. Haha. Choose. Let's see how many. No, many people will condemn what they say on the streets of King George, but they ain't coming to Rattle Hill, you know.
They wouldn't come?
Nope.
Oh, Bishop. Challenge. No, we make a choice.
It's
We
a
have to
big challenge, but I've
yeah.
said to myself, these things are not solved in a single lifetime.
Yes. It's a journey, a long, long road
Amen.
to freedom. A winding. We have a song to
Deep
that.
and wide.
Yes. So, listeners and viewers, we run out of time today, but I guess what was said was necessary. So, hope to join us next week with Bishop for another conversation. So, what you missed in this conversation, please take a note of it if you'd like to deal with it in the next conversation. So, all the very best to Carriacou, Petit Martinique, and persons who have experienced really deep trauma in this time, and things are being done, plans are in place to help. So remember the 25th of August, that's a Sunday, when there'll be a general collection in all of our parish churches. So we thank you all, and please join us for celebration of Holy Mass today. And we also think of the Redemptorist community, whose feast day is today. Alphonsus Ligori is the founder. So may God bless you all, and join us for celebration of Holy Mass shortly.
Oh, freedom. Oh.